Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking you on a journey through time and across continents to explore the story of the Talavera surname.
Okay.
We've got academic articles, genealogical databases, even insights from professional networking platforms. It's like having a time machine and a global passport all rolled into one.
Wow.
So are you ready to uncover the secrets of the Talavera lineage?
Absolutely. It's amazing how much history can be packed into a single surname. We can trace migration patterns, uncover cultural shifts,
Uh-huh.
and even get glimpses into social hierarchies, all through the evolution of a name.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where does the Talavera name actually come from?
The Talavera name most likely originated from one of two places in Spain,
Okay.
Talavera de la Reina in Toledo or Talavera la Real in Badajoz. These are examples of what we call toponymic surnames, meaning they are derived from place names. It's as if your ancestors lived in a village called Oakhaven,
Uh-huh.
and over time that location became part of their identity, eventually evolving into their surname.
So it's like a piece of their geographic origin became embedded in their family name. I'm picturing a map of Spain with these two towns as our starting points. But is that really where the Talavera story begins?
Well, it gets even more interesting. We actually have documentation of a Talavera in the town of Cocentaina in Valencia, as early as 1269, and it's believed they may have come from the Catalonia region. This discovery pushes the family history back even further than we initially thought.
Wow, 1269, that's taking deep dive to a whole new level. So we've got these deep roots in Spain. But I have a feeling the Talavera name didn't just stay put, did it?
You're absolutely right. From those Spanish origins, the Talaveras embarked on a journey that spanned the globe. We see significant concentrations of Talaveras in Peru, Mexico, Argentina,
Uh-huh.
and the United States. When we overlay a map of their presence with historical migration patterns, particularly the Spanish movement to the Americas, it paints a very clear picture.
It's like a family tree with branches reaching across continents.
Yeah.
This must be what's called the Talavera diaspora, right?
Exactly. A diaspora refers to the scattering of a population from their original homeland. And for the Talaveras, their diaspora is directly linked to historical events that rippled across continents. The Spanish colonization of the Americas, for example, resulted in massive migration from Spain to the New World. The Talaveras were part of that wave. And we can trace their presence through colonial records, land grants, and even military rosters. Their surname became woven into the fabric of history.
It's amazing to think how those historical forces shaped the family's journey.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Talavera showing up in Asia and Oceania as well. That's not exactly along the route to the Americas.
That's where things take an even more fascinating turn. While some of that presence can be attributed to modern globalization, there's also evidence of Talaveras in places like the Philippines centuries ago, long before easy global travel. This suggests they may have been part of early trade routes or expeditions that predate traditional historical narratives. We're potentially talking about connections to the Manila galleons, those Spanish trading ships that crossed the Pacific, and the complex web of journeys they represent.
Okay, hold on. Manila galleons. That's not a term I'm familiar with. Can you unpack that a bit?
Of course. The Manila galleons were Spanish trading ships that sailed between Manila in the Philippines and Acapulco in Mexico for over 2 centuries. They were a vital link in the global trade network of the time, carrying goods like silk, spices, and porcelain from Asia to the Americas, and silver from the Americas to Asia.
Wow, so the Talaveras might have been early global citizens navigating these vast trade routes.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about what evidence there is to support that idea. What kind of historical records point to their presence on these voyages?
Well, there are a few intriguing clues. For instance, we find mentions of individuals with the Talavera surname in Spanish colonial documents related to the Philippines dating back to the 16th century. While we don't have definitive proof that they were on board the Manila galleons, it's a plausible theory given the timing, and the fact that these ships required skilled sailors, merchants, and even soldiers for protection roles that a resourceful Talavera might have filled.
Okay, so we've got a name with roots in Spanish soil, a potential link to a specific geographical feature near those towns, and a journey that's been shaped by migration, colonization, and perhaps even early global trade. It's fascinating to see how these historical forces acted as currents, carrying the Talavera name to different corners of the world. But surnames are more than just labels, aren't they? They often carry a deeper meaning, reflecting a family's heritage and values.
Absolutely. And in the case of the Talaveras, one theme shines through quite brightly: a deep respect for education. Remember how we mentioned a significant percentage of modern Talaveras hold university degrees? Well, that emphasis on learning seems to be a recurring theme throughout their history, going all the way back to a prominent figure named Hernando de Talavera.
Hernando de Talavera. Now, there's a name that sounds like it's straight out of a history book.
He was a prominent figure in 15th century Spain, a scholar and advisor to Queen Isabella, and even the Archbishop of Granada.
Wow, talk about an impressive resume. But what makes Hernando so significant to the Talavera story? Did his love for learning really impact the family that much?
Well, Hernando's story provides a fascinating window into the family's values and their role in shaping history. His life unfolded during a pivotal period in Spain, the Reconquista, the centuries-long struggle to reclaim the Iberian Peninsula from Muslim rule, and the subsequent establishment of the Spanish Inquisition, a powerful institution tasked with rooting out heresy.
Well, wait a minute. I know a little bit about the Spanish Inquisition from history class, but could you give me a quick refresher on the Reconquista? I want to make sure I'm following along.
Of course. The Reconquista, which translates to reconquest, spanned roughly 781 years and involved a series of battles and campaigns by Christian kingdoms to reclaim territories from Muslim rule. It culminated in 1492 with the fall of Granada, the last Muslim stronghold in Iberia. This period profoundly shaped Spanish identity and politics, leading to a unification of the kingdoms and a surge in Catholic power.
Okay, that's helpful. So Hernando was right in the thick of these massive historical shifts. But how did his personal story intersect with these events?
Well, what's particularly intriguing about Hernando is his approach to the conversion of Muslims in Granada after the Reconquista. He advocated for gentle persuasion rather than coercion, a stark contrast to the forced conversions happening elsewhere in Spain, which often led to violence and resentment.
That's remarkable. It sounds like he was way ahead of his time in terms of promoting understanding and tolerance between different religious groups.
He was certainly a man of principle. He even learned Arabic to preach to the Muslim population in their own language. This demonstrated a remarkable respect for their culture and foreshadowed the modern emphasis on intercultural understanding.
That's so cool. I bet that didn't sit well with everyone back then. Was he ever criticized for this approach?
Oh, absolutely. Sadly, his methods put him at odds with some powerful figures, most notably Cardinal Cisneros, who favored a much harsher and more forceful approach to conversion.
Ah, Cardinal Cisneros. He was the head honcho of the Spanish Inquisition, right? I can see how their views would clash. But what were the specific points of contention between them?
Their disagreement centered around the methods used to bring about religious conversion. Cisneros believed in a strict interpretation of Catholic doctrine and saw forced conversion as necessary to unify Spain under a single faith. He used the Inquisition to suppress any perceived deviations from orthodoxy, sometimes resorting to harsh punishments. Hernando, on the other hand, believed that genuine conversion could only come through understanding and persuasion. He felt that using force would only breed resentment and ultimately undermine the true spirit of Christianity.
So they were basically arguing about whether it's more effective to win hearts and minds, or to impose beliefs through fear and authority. What a dilemma. How did this clash of ideologies play out?
Well, their disagreements led to accusations of heresy against Hernando from the Inquisition. This was a serious charge that could have had dire consequences. Fortunately, Hernando had powerful allies, including Pope Julius II, who defended him, and he managed to avoid a grim fate.
Ooh, talk about dodging a bullet. It's a good thing he had friends in high places. But it sounds like Hernando's story highlights how the Talaveras weren't afraid to stand up for their beliefs, even when facing powerful opposition.
Exactly. And while not all Talaveras were scholars or religious figures like Hernando, his dedication to education and his courageous stance against intolerance seem to have left a lasting mark on the family's identity. It's a legacy that appears to have resonated through generations, shaping their interactions with the world and influencing their contributions to society.
So we've gone from a name on a map to a real individual who navigated the turbulent waters of history. But I'm curious, how does this connect to the wider Talavera story? Did Hernando's values influence other family members?
It's an intriguing question. While we can't say for sure how much direct influence Hernando had, his story aligns with a pattern we see among the Talaveras. Historical and genealogical records show a consistent trend of them pursuing higher education, holding positions of authority in both religious and secular realms, and actively contributing to their communities. It's almost as if Hernando's legacy planted a seed that continued to blossom throughout the family's history.
So we see that emphasis on education not just in Hernando, but also in generations that followed. That's incredible. But education is just one piece of the puzzle, right? Culture is also about art, music, food, all those things that make a family unique. What can you tell me about the Talaveras in that sense?
Well, you're right. There's so much more to explore beyond just academics. The Talaveras have left their mark in various creative and cultural spheres as well. While we may not have household names on the global stage, historical records and even contemporary social media reveal a vibrant artistic community among the Talaveras. We find talented painters, sculptors, musicians, even writers, scattered across the globe. It's like a hidden artistic legacy, flourishing within the family itself.
That's so cool. It's like they have this whole creative world buzzing beneath the surface. I'm dying to know more about these Talavera artists and their work. But before we go there, I have to ask, did their Spanish heritage play a role in their artistic expression?
It's certainly a possibility. The Talaveras, with their deep roots in Spain, were inevitably influenced by the rich artistic traditions of their homeland. From the intricate designs of Moorish architecture to the vibrant colors of flamenco dancers, Spanish culture is steeped in visual and performing arts. It wouldn't be surprising to find echoes of these influences in the work of Talavera artists, whether they consciously recognize them or not.
That makes total sense. It's like their artistic DNA is intertwined with their cultural heritage. But I'm guessing there's more to the story than just visual arts. What about music? Did the Talaveras make beautiful music together?
They certainly did. Music has always been a vital part of Spanish culture, and the Talaveras were no exception. We find mentions of Talaveras involved in various musical pursuits throughout history, from playing traditional instruments like the guitar and the bandurria to composing original pieces.
So it's like they had their own family orchestra passing down melodies and traditions through generations. This is amazing. But before we get too carried away with music, I can't forget about one of my favorite aspects of culture, food. Do the Talaveras have any special culinary traditions?
You bet. In fact, you might already be familiar with Talavera pottery, those beautifully decorated ceramics from Spain.
Oh yeah, those are gorgeous. I've seen them in museums and even in some fancy restaurants. I never realized they had a connection to a family name.
Well, it turns out those ceramics are just one facet of a rich culinary tradition among the Talaveras. Family recipes passed down through generations feature prominently in their culture. We even find mentions of specific Talavera dishes in historical cookbooks and travelogues. Imagine savory stews simmering in hand-painted clay pots, or colorful tapas spread out on a table adorned with those beautiful Talavera tiles.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Food is more than just sustenance. It's about connecting to your heritage and sharing stories through flavors and aromas. I bet those family recipes hold a special place in the Talavera family's heart.
Absolutely. And those culinary traditions are yet another example of how the Talaveras have preserved their cultural identity, even as they've spread across the globe.
So we've got a family with a passion for education, a hidden artistic legacy, and a dedication to preserving their culinary heritage. It's incredible how much richness we've uncovered just by exploring the story of the Talavera surname. But we're just getting started right.
Indeed. There's so much more to uncover. From their social dynamics and community involvement to their impact on the world around them. I can't wait to dive deeper in part 2.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're continuing our exploration of the Talavera lineage, and I'm already feeling like I'm flipping through a family photo album, each page revealing another fascinating chapter in their story.
It's quite a journey, isn't it? We've gone from tracing their origins in Spain to uncovering their global presence.
Right.
And even getting a taste of their cultural traditions.
You know, it's funny. When I first heard we were going to do a deep dive on a surname, I thought it'd be all about genealogy charts and family trees. But it's turned out to be so much more than that. It's like we're piecing together a giant, intricate puzzle that reflects not just one family's history, but the sweep of global events and cultural shifts.
And we're about to uncover a few more pieces of that puzzle. Remember how we talked about those toponymic surnames, the ones derived from place names, like Talavera?
Yes. It's fascinating how a family's connection to a particular place can become embedded in their name.
Well, it turns out there are different types of toponymic surnames. Some are habitational, meaning they originated from a specific settlement.
Okay.
Others, like Talavera, are topographic.
Topographic. I'm not familiar with that term. What does it mean?
Topographic surnames are derived from a geographical feature of a place, rather than the settlement itself. Instead of simply indicating, I'm from Oakhaven, it's more like, I'm from the place with the winding river, or I'm from the Valley of the Red Rocks.
Ah, I see. So it's not just about the town or village itself, but something distinctive about the surrounding landscape.
Exactly.
That makes so much sense.
And the Talavera name likely refers to a specific characteristic of the landscape. Near those Spanish towns we talked about,
Okay.
Talavera de la Reina and Talavera la Real, it's believed to be derived from the Latin talabria, meaning cut wood.
Cut wood.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Does that give us any clues about what life might have been like for those early Talaveras?
It certainly paints a picture. It suggests that those early Talaveras may have lived near a dense forest, perhaps a place known for its timber industry. Imagine a landscape shaped by the rhythm of axes and saws, where the scent of freshly cut wood filled the air.
Wow. I can almost smell the pine needles and hear the sound of trees falling. It's incredible how a single word can transport us back in time and help us connect with the lives of our ancestors.
And speaking of connections across time, let's revisit the Talavera diaspora. Remember we talked about how their journey was shaped by historical forces like the Spanish colonization of the Americas?
Right. It's amazing how their surname became a marker, tracing their movement across continents and through historical events.
Well, as we delve deeper into their diaspora, we discover even more layers of complexity. It's not just a straightforward westward expansion. It's a more intricate tapestry woven from various threads: migration, trade exploration, and even personal ambition.
You mentioned earlier the possibility of Talaveras being involved in the Manila Galleon trade routes. That really captured my imagination. It's such a vivid image, those ships laden with treasures crossing vast oceans, connecting different worlds. But what kind of evidence suggests Talaveras might have been part of those voyages?
We find intriguing hints in historical records. For instance, there are Spanish colonial documents from the Philippines, dating back to the 16th century, that mention individuals bearing the Talavera surname. While we don't have ship manifests or personal diaries to confirm their presence on those galleons, it's a plausible theory given the timing and the types of roles those ships required.
I could just imagine a young Talavera filled with a thirst for adventure, signing up as a sailor or a merchant on one of those grand voyages.
Exactly.
It's like something out of a swashbuckling historical novel.
And it speaks to a certain spirit of adventure and resilience that seems to have run through the Talavera family. They weren't just passive passengers on the waves of history. They were actively shaping their own destinies, seeking opportunities in far-off lands, and leaving their mark on the world.
It's so inspiring. They remind me of those intrepid explorers who set sail into uncharted territories, driven by curiosity and a desire to discover new horizons.
And those journeys weren't without their challenges, of course. The Manila Galleon trade route was fraught with peril storms, pirates' disease. It took a certain kind of grit and determination to face those dangers head-on.
Wow, it makes you realize how much courage it must have taken to leave behind everything familiar and embark on those journeys into the unknown. But they weren't just focused on exploration and adventure, right? And we talked about the Talavera emphasis on education and their cultural contributions. How did those aspects of their identity manifest during their diaspora?
That's a great question. It seems that even as they ventured into new territories, the Talaveras carried with them their core values. Wherever they settled, they established roots, built communities, and contributed to the societies around them.
So it wasn't just about conquering new lands. It was also about nurturing those new communities and leaving a positive legacy. Can you give me some specific examples of how they did that?
Well, one striking pattern we see is their involvement in establishing and supporting institutions that benefited the wider community. Historical records show Talaveras involved in founding schools, hospitals, even libraries in the regions where they settled.
So they weren't just focused on personal gain or advancement. They were invested in the well-being of their communities and the pursuit of knowledge.
Precisely.
It sounds like they were carrying on that legacy of social responsibility that we saw with Hernando de Talavera.
And their contributions weren't limited to practical matters like schools and hospitals. They were also patrons of the arts, supporting artists, musicians, and writers, helping to foster a vibrant cultural scene in the communities they inhabited.
It's like they were weaving their own cultural threads into the tapestry of their new homes, enriching the lives of those around them. It's so inspiring to see how they balanced their drive to explore with their commitment to community building and cultural expression.
And that balance is a key element of the Talavera story. They were adventurers, scholars, artists, and community builders all rolled into one. Their diaspora wasn't just about physical movement across geography, it was also about the expansion of ideas, the sharing of knowledge, and the creation of new cultural landscapes.
I love that idea. It's like their journey represents the interconnectedness of the human experience, how we all in our own ways contribute to the larger story of humanity. But we've talked a lot about the positive aspects of their journey. Were there any challenges or conflicts that emerged during their diaspora?
Of course, like any family, the Talaveras weren't immune to conflicts and disagreements. As they branched out across the world, different branches of the family developed their own unique identities, sometimes leading to rivalries or disputes over resources or influence.
So even with a shared heritage and strong family values, there were still moments of tension and disagreement. It's a reminder that no family is perfect. We all have our internal dynamics and complexities.
Exactly. And those internal dynamics often played out against the backdrop of larger historical events. For example, during the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s, we find Talaveras on both sides of the conflict, their loyalties divided by political ideology and personal convictions.
Wow, that must have been a difficult time for the family, to be torn apart by such a divisive conflict.
Absolutely.
It makes you realize how powerful those larger historical forces can be, even shaping the relationships within a family.
And it highlights another important aspect of the Talavera story, their resilience and adaptability. Even in the face of conflict and adversity, they found ways to persevere, to maintain their core values, and to continue contributing to the world around them.
It's like their story is a microcosm of human history itself, full of triumphs and tragedies, moments of unity and division, but ultimately reflecting the enduring spirit of humanity. But I'm curious, how did these historical experiences shape the modern Talaveras? What can you tell me about the family today?
Well, the Talaveras today are a truly global community, scattered across continents and cultures, their lives shaped by a rich tapestry of experiences inherited from their ancestors. They represent a fascinating blend of tradition and modernity, carrying forward the values of education, social responsibility, and family unity while navigating the complexities of the 21st century.
It sounds like their story is still being written, with each generation adding its own unique chapter. I'm so eager to hear more about these modern-day Talaveras, their accomplishments, their challenges, and how they're carrying the torch of their family legacy.
Well, then let's dive into that next chapter. In part 3, we'll explore the lives of the modern Talaveras and see how their story continues to unfold in the present day.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've journeyed from the cobblestone streets of medieval Spain to the bustling ports of the Manila galleon trade routes, uncovering the fascinating saga of the Talavera family. Now it's time to fast forward to the present day and explore how this legacy lives on in the modern Talaveras.
It's amazing to think that a surname can act as a thread connecting us through centuries, isn't it? And as we shift our focus to the Talaveras of today, we see that this thread continues to weave a vibrant tapestry of stories, experiences, and achievements.
You know, as we've been delving into this deep dive, I've been thinking a lot about my own family history. It's made me realize how much I don't know. I'm suddenly very curious to explore my own family's journey through time.
That's the beauty of these deep dives. They spark a curiosity and urge to uncover those hidden stories that shape who we are. And I have a feeling the modern Talaveras would share that same enthusiasm for exploring their roots.
Okay, so let's get back to the present day. What can you tell me about the lives of modern Talaveras? What are they up to? Where are they making their mark on the world?
Well, one of the most striking things about the modern Talaveras is their global reach. Remember that diaspora we talked about?
Yeah.
It's still very much in play. We find Talaveras living and working on every continent, contributing to a wide range of fields. It's a truly global community.
It's like that family tree we imagined earlier, with its branches stretching across the world, is now bursting with vibrant new growth. But with such a diverse spread, I imagine it's hard to pin down any common threads or shared experiences. Is there anything that unites them besides their surname?
That's a great question. And while their individual experiences are incredibly diverse, there are some common threads that emerge when we look at the modern Talaveras as a whole. For instance, remember that strong emphasis on education that we trace back to Hernando de Talavera. It's still a defining characteristic of the family today.
So there's still a bunch of bookworms hitting the library and racking up degrees. I have to admit, I'm a little bit impressed.
You should be. Data from professional networking platforms like LinkedIn show that a significant percentage of modern Talaveras hold university degrees and are actively engaged in intellectually stimulating careers. We find them working as doctors, lawyers, engineers, scientists, educators, entrepreneurs. The list goes on and on.
Wow, that's quite a range. It sounds like they're carrying on that legacy of scholarship and intellectual curiosity that we saw in their ancestors. But beyond just academics, are there any other areas where they're making a mark?
Absolutely. The Talaveras have always had a strong sense of social responsibility, and that continues to be evident today. We find them actively involved in various social causes,
Yep.
environmental protection, human rights advocacy, community development projects. They're not just focused on personal success, they're using their skills and resources to make a positive impact on the world.
That's so inspiring. It's like they're taking that Talavera spirit of community building and applying it to the global challenges of our time. I'm really curious to hear about some specific examples. Are there any modern Talaveras whose stories stand out in this regard?
There are many inspiring stories. For instance, there's a young Talavera in Argentina who founded an organization that provides educational resources to underprivileged children in rural areas. And there's a Talavera family in the United States who has dedicated themselves to preserving rainforests in the Amazon basin.
Those are incredible stories. It's heartwarming to see how they're using their talents and passions to make a real difference. But with such a global spread, I imagine maintaining a sense of family connection must be a challenge. How do they stay connected across continents and cultures?
Well, technology certainly plays a role. Social media platforms and online forums have become virtual gathering places for Talaveras around the world. They share family stories, photos, recipes, and even collaborate on genealogical research projects. It's a way to bridge those geographical gaps and maintain a sense of shared history and identity.
It's like they're creating their own digital family reunion, spanning time zones and languages. That's amazing. But I imagine those online connections only go so far. Do they ever have in-person gatherings or reunions?
They do. There are actually several Talavera family associations around the world that organize regular gatherings, bringing together family members from far and wide to celebrate their shared heritage.
That's so heartwarming. It must be incredible for them to meet distant relatives, share stories, and experience that sense of belonging that comes from being part of such a vast and vibrant family.
Exactly. And those gatherings often involve traditional music, food, and dances, keeping those cultural connections alive and passing them down to younger generations.
It's like they're weaving a new layer onto that tapestry of Talavera history, blending the threads of the past with the experiences of the present. But with all the changes and challenges of the modern world, I wonder if younger Talaveras feel that same connection to their family legacy.
It's an interesting question. And while every individual's experience is unique, there seems to be a strong sense of pride among younger Talaveras in their family history. Many of them are actively engaged in researching their ancestry, documenting family stories, and preserving those traditions that make their heritage so special.
It's like they're recognizing the value of that legacy and taking ownership of it, shaping it to fit their own lives and aspirations. It's a beautiful testament to the enduring power of family and the importance of connecting to our roots.
I couldn't agree more. The story of the Talaveras is a reminder that while surnames might seem like simple labels, they can unlock a world of stories, connect us to a rich tapestry of human experience, and inspire us to explore our own place in the grand narrative of history.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the Talavera lineage. I have to say, I've come away from this experience with a newfound appreciation for the power of surnames, to connect us to the past, the present, and even the future.
Me too. And I hope our listener has been inspired to embark on their own deep dive into their family history. You never know what fascinating discoveries await.
Absolutely. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the stories that shape who we are.
Happy day.